In the soft, gray hush before sunrise, when the cool breath of dawn slipped quietly across the damp, uneven soil of the medieval countryside, the world of the peasant began not with excitement or haste, but with the slow, steady awakening of a landscape that had shaped generations before them and would continue shaping countless generations after, for the land itself was their anchor, their master, their provider, and their most unforgiving judge. And in this relationship, this silent, unbreakable bond, the medieval peasant found the rhythms that defined not only his work and his responsibilities, but every bite of food he consumed, every breath he took, and every weary step he walked from morning to night. The land stretched outward in rolling fields of barley and oats, patches of rye, and occasional strips of wheat belonging not to the peasants themselves, but to the Lord who ruled the manor. Yet, despite owning nothing of the earth they tilled, the peasants understood its moods with the intimacy of lifelong companionship, recognizing the subtle shift in the wind that signaled upcoming rain, the particular dryness of soil that warned of a failing season, the delicate green flush that marked the first brave appearance of spring shoots after a long, punishing winter. And though their lives were shaped by hardship and scarcity, they also carried within themselves a deep reverence for the fragile miracle of growth. For every grain harvested meant another day of survival, not only for themselves, but for their children, their elders, and their community. And as the morning light began to gently roll across the fields, warming the frost-kissed ground and stirring small birds from their nests, the peasant stepped from his modest timber-framed hut, its thatched roof patched again and again with bundles of straw tied tightly with coarse twine, and felt the familiar coolness of the earth beneath his bare or poorly covered feet, a sensation so constant in his life that it almost acted as a reminder of who he was, a caretaker, a laborer, a humble steward of the land rather than its owner. Yet in this humility there existed a quiet strength, for while the nobles and clergy lived in comfort, surrounded by stone walls and servants, the peasants survived because they understood the land in ways no noble ever would, working not with force, but with the wisdom that came from centuries of simple, practical living, and their food humble, repetitive, and often bland was a direct reflection of the soil they labored over, offering them not pleasure but sustenance, not luxury but resilience. The fields were the heart of their existence, and within those fields lived the ingredients that fed nearly every medieval peasant meal: barley, which formed the base of thick pottages eaten daily; rye, which produced the dark, dense bread that filled stomachs even when flavor was scarce; oats, turned into gruels or mixed into dough when supplies ran low; and the occasional wheat, though wheat was rarely consumed by peasants because its quality made it valuable to lords and the church. Yet, if the harvest was generous, or if a feast day approached, a handful of wheat flour might find its way into a special loaf, offering a fleeting moment of softness in a life defined by roughness. And though these grains lacked the diversity that modern diets take for granted, they were the foundation of the peasant's survival, carrying the warmth of the earth in every bite, connecting each household to the past in an unspoken chain of tradition, endurance, and necessity. Around the edges of the fields, where the soil grew wild and less suitable for grain, the peasants planted hardy vegetables, leeks, onions, beans, cabbages that required little attention yet offered essential nourishment. And these vegetables, though simple, became treasured allies in the battle against hunger, transforming even the most monotonous pottage into something slightly more comforting, slightly more filling, slightly more hopeful. The land did not merely feed the peasants. It dictated their days, their seasons, and their understanding of time itself. For in a world without clocks or schedules beyond the church bell, the peasants measured life by the soil's demands, sowing in the spring, tending throughout the summer, harvesting in the autumn, and surviving through the winter, a cycle so ancient and so familiar that it became the backbone of medieval existence, the silent metronome keeping every life in motion. And though this cycle rarely changed, its outcomes could vary dramatically. For a single unexpected frost or a stretch of unyielding drought could reduce an entire season's labor to dust, and with it, the promise of meals for months to come. Thus, the land was both a loyal companion and a cruel authority, offering sustenance only when treated with respect and patience, punishing carelessness or misfortune with hunger, sickness, or despair. Yet the peasants accepted this reality with remarkable steadiness, for their lives were rooted not in expectation but in endurance, not in luxury but in the quiet satisfaction of knowing that every grain harvested, every vegetable stored, every loaf baked was the result of their own hands, their own sweat, their own unbreakable perseverance. And so, as the sun slowly climbed the sky and cast warm light across the patchwork of fields stretching toward the horizon, the medieval peasant breathed deeply and stepped forward into another day of labor, feeling not pride in the modern sense, but a grounded sense of belonging. For though his life was harsh and hunger always lingered like a silent shadow, the land offered something deeper than comfort. It offered purpose, stability, and connection. And through these bonds, the peasant learned to live with gratitude for the earth beneath him, for even the simplest meal born from the soil held within it the memory of seed, rain, sunlight, and toil, transforming every bite into a quiet affirmation of survival in a world where food was not abundance but blessing, not pleasure but life itself. In the dim glow of a slowly waking morning, when the last traces of night still clung stubbornly to the corners of the small, smoke-darkened hut, the medieval peasant's daily struggle for food began long before he stepped outside into the cold breath of dawn. For it started with the familiar ache in his stomach, a dull, constant reminder that hunger was not merely a passing discomfort, but a condition woven into every hour of his existence, shaping his decisions, his pace, and even the conversations that murmured quietly between family members as they stirred the embers in the hearth and prepared for another day of work driven not by ambition or leisure, but by the need to secure the next meal. Inside this cramped wooden home, where the air carried the heavy scent of earth, ash, and damp wool, a pot of pottage often hung over the low fire, simmering through the night, absorbing whatever ingredients were available, whether barley, beans, peas, onions, or the previous day's leftovers. And though it lacked the richness and variety enjoyed by nobles, it held a comforting sense of continuity, becoming a culinary companion that persisted through the week, thick and hearty on Monday when fresh ingredients were added, slightly watered down by Wednesday as the pot required stretching, and thin and tired by Friday, when the family scraped the bottom with wooden spoons, praying silently that Saturday might bring something to enliven its fading flavor. This dish, humble and repetitive, reflected the very essence of peasant life. For the medieval villager rarely sought pleasure from food, understanding that flavors were luxuries and fullness was a temporary miracle. And so each spoonful of pottage, no matter how bland, carried a weight of gratitude, serving as tangible evidence that the family had survived yet another night, and that survival alone was a victory in a world where famine lurked in the shadows of every season. As the morning deepened and the fire crackled into steadier warmth, the family gathered around the simple wooden table, worn smooth from years of use, sharing coarse black bread made from rye flour. Its dense texture so familiar that its hardness no longer surprised their teeth. This bread, often baked in communal ovens, represented a communal bond among peasants, for they shared not only ovens but experiences, hardships, and the knowledge that food, however small in portion, was strongest when shared. And so meal preparation became an act of unity rather than mere sustenance, with mothers carefully slicing bread, fathers tending embers, and children learning how to stretch ingredients through gentle practice passed down through generations. And once the morning meal was taken, simple and silent, the peasants stepped out onto the earthen path, heading toward the fields with a calm resolve, born not of choice but of necessity, aware that the day's labor would determine tomorrow's meals, and that even the smallest lapse over, sleeping, wasting time, misjudging the readiness of the soil, could be the difference between fullness and hunger. In the fields, where the horizon opened in long stretches of cultivated land broken by patches of wild greenery, the peasant worked with quiet determination, bending over furrows, scattering seeds, pruning plants, harvesting sheaves, or guiding the heavy plow pulled by an ox that moved with slow but steady force. And though each task demanded energy that their bodies often lacked, the peasants pushed forward with the understanding that every movement brought the promise of nourishment closer. For the crops they tended were more than food. They were the thin line between survival and suffering. Throughout the day, hunger ebbed and flowed like a tide, growing sharper during moments of rest when the body paused long enough to remember its emptiness, then fading slightly as work demanded full attention, but never fully disappearing, never truly silent. And by midday, when the sun hung heavy in the sky and the fields shimmered in its warmth, the peasants gathered beneath sparse shade to eat whatever they had packed: a small piece of bread, a portion of cold pottage thickened from sitting overnight, a handful of dried beans, or, if fortune smiled upon them, a few slices of cheese made from the milk of a single cow shared by several families. Such moments, though brief, carried a sense of quiet companionship, as neighbors exchanged nods, shared bites when possible, and revived their strength before returning to the relentless labor awaiting them. The afternoon passed with the same slow rhythm as the morning, the peasant moving in tune with the land, his hands roughened by soil and weather, his thoughts drifting between the present task and the hope that the evening meal would provide a moment of comfort to counterbalance the fatigue waning steadily through his limbs. And when the sun finally dipped low, casting the fields in a soft golden haze, the villagers made their way back home, their bodies weary but their spirits steadied by the knowledge that they had given the land everything it demanded for another day. Inside the hut, the hearth glowed warmly once again, and the familiar scent of pottage thinner, now than at weeks, start welcomed them like an old friend. And though the meal lacked surprise or excitement, it held the profound reassurance of routine, a small but vital comfort in their unpredictable world. Families gathered around the table, dipping bread into the warm broth, sipping weak ale brewed at home to purify the water, and savoring simple vegetables harvested from small garden plots, leeks, carrots that added color and texture to a life otherwise defined by earthy browns and muted grays. And as the fire flickered across their tired faces, softening the lines carved by labor and time, they spoke quietly or sometimes not at all. For silence was not loneliness in the medieval peasant's home, but rather a shared form of rest, a moment when all could breathe freely without the weight of the day pressing upon them. After the meal, bowls were washed with limited water, the fire banked for the night, and the pot hung again above the embers, ready to gather new ingredients in the morning, ready to continue the endless cycle that sustained and shaped their lives. In this way, the medieval peasant's daily struggle for food was not merely a matter of eating, but a continuous journey defined by scarcity, repetition, wisdom, and resilience. And though modern eyes may see monotony or hardship, the peasants themselves found meaning in the consistency of their meals, drawing strength from the knowledge that even the simplest pottage was a triumph of labor, community, and the enduring bond they shared with the land that fed them just enough to keep going, day after day, generation after generation, in a world where survival itself was the greatest accomplishment. In the medieval world, hunger did not drift in and out of daily life as a mild inconvenience or an occasional discomfort, but instead descended like a season of its own, predictable in its arrival, relentless in its duration, and deeply woven into the consciousness of every peasant who rose with the dawn and slept under the whispering dark. For although the turning of the year brought spring rains, summer growth, autumn harvests, and winter frost, there was another, far more haunting cycle that rested quietly beneath these visible patterns, a cycle known to the villagers as the lean months, when food grew scarce, hope grew thin, and the entire community learned once again what it meant to live with the tightness of hunger, curled like a fist inside their hollowing stomachs. During these months, which stretched from late winter into early spring, the peasants found themselves caught in a narrowing corridor of survival. For the granaries that had once been filled with autumn's promise now echoed with the sound of near emptiness, their remaining grains clinging to the wooden walls like the last fading embers of a dying fire, and the vegetables stored in root cellars shriveled slowly, losing firmness and flavor until they became little more than shadows of their former selves, soft and wrinkled, yet still precious enough to protect from waste. But even more than the physical signs of scarcity, it was the atmosphere of quiet tension that defined this hunger season. As families moved through their days with the careful deliberateness of people who understood that every crumb mattered, every spoonful counted, and every decision regarding the next meal could determine the difference between strength and weakness, health and illness, survival and collapse, the medieval peasant, though familiar with hardship from childhood, felt the weight of this season deeply each year. And the first warning came not from the fields, but from the body itself, when the steady warmth of daily meals gave way to the sharp edge of emptiness. A feeling that expanded slowly but persistently, reminding them with each step that nourishment was slipping farther out of reach. This hunger-shaped behavior, in subtle yet profound ways, slowing movements, quieting voices, reducing energy, and turning everyday tasks into deliberate efforts that required more strength than the peasant could easily give. Yet even in this fatigue, the villagers found ways to adapt, stretching their remaining stores with ingenuity developed through generations of facing the same yearly challenge, mixing ground barley with acorns to extend the flour, boiling bones long after their meat was gone to create broths that offered warmth, if not substance, gathering nettles, wild herbs, and edible roots from the edges of fields and forest paths, and reserving any treasured scraps of fat or dried fish for moments when energy was needed most, such as during plowing, planting, or tending livestock. And just as hunger shaped the body, it shaped the mind, altering the way peasants thought, hoped, and prayed. For in these lean months, the villagers became more attuned to the rhythms of the earth, watching the sky for signs of spring, listening to the thawing ground for hints of life returning, and longing for the first green shoots that would soon poke through the softened soil like tiny miracles, announcing the beginning of relief. Each morning, as they opened their eyes to the cold gray light that slipped through cracks in the wooden walls, they carried with them the knowledge that hunger did not belong to individuals alone, but to the entire village, creating a shared burden that tied them together more tightly than any feast, festival, or celebration ever could. For hunger was a teacher as much as it was an adversary, instructing them in patience, endurance, and humility. And the peasants, weary yet resilient, learned its lessons with the quiet grace of people who had no choice but to accept the discipline it imposed. But even in this season of want, community softened the edges of suffering. 4 villagers helped one another when they could, offering a measure of barley to a neighbor whose supply had vanished too quickly, sharing a portion of pottage with an elderly widow unable to work the fields, or sending children into the woods together to forage for whatever nature might yield in its sparse generosity. And though these offerings were small, they carried a significance far greater than their size, becoming symbols of solidarity, compassion, and the understanding that no one endured hunger alone. And within this communal effort, there emerged a quiet, unspoken resilience that flowed through the village like a river moving beneath a layer of ice, slow but steady, unyielding but calm, guiding them all toward the promise of relief, waiting just beyond the horizon of early spring. As the lean season stretched into its final weeks, the peasants turned their attention toward the fields once more, preparing the soil for planting, even as their bodies protested with weakness and their stomachs whispered with emptiness. For they knew that surrendering to fatigue now would mean extending the hunger later. And so they pressed on, breaking the hardened earth with wooden tools, guiding oxen across muddy rows, and scattering seeds with hands that trembled not from fear but from the strain of exertion on so little nourishment. And in these moments, hope became a sustenance of its own, for the act of planting was an act of faith, a quiet promise that food would return. that the land would once again reward their labor with grain, vegetables, and life itself. And when, at last, the first green blades pierced the softened ground like slender declarations of renewal, the villagers felt a deep exhale ripple through the community, a release of tension so profound that even the smallest child could sense the shift. And though these early plants could not be eaten, their presence alone offered a nourishment of spirit, a reminder that hunger, like winter, was a season with an end. Slowly, the world softened, the days grew longer, the air warmed, the snow melted, and birds returned to the hedgerows, filling the mornings with their delicate songs as though nature itself was offering a gentle reassurance that the worst had passed. The peasants, though still thin from the long months of scarcity, began to move with renewed steadiness, gathering spring greens that sprouted wild in the meadows, preparing the soil for summer crops, and looking toward the future with the quiet optimism of people who understood that abundance was not necessary for gratitude. For even the smallest improvement, extra bowl of pottage, a thicker slice of bread, a fresh onion pulled from the warming earth, was enough to remind them that life was returning to fullness, that the season of hunger had begun to loosen its grip, and that endurance had once again carried them through the most difficult time of the year. And as the first true harvest of the season approached, the villagers felt a profound sense of relief settle over them, knowing that they had survived not through miracle, but through perseverance, wisdom, and a deep connection to the land that sustained them even when it offered little. And in this quiet triumph lay the true nature of medieval life, a life defined not by luxury or comfort, but by the steady strength of ordinary people who endured hunger year after year, learning not to fear it, but to understand it, to prepare for it, and to face it with the calm resilience of those who knew that survival itself was a victory worth celebrating. Even in a world where every meal was earned through hardship and every season of famine was met with courage, community, and the unwavering hope that spring would always return. The medieval peasants' world was shaped not only by the food placed on their wooden tables, but also by the slow, rhythmic cycle of the seasons, the land, and the unchanging expectations of feudal life. And to truly understand how they ate, we must step quietly into the dim, smoke-stained interior of a 12th century peasant cottage where simplicity ruled every corner. Here, in this world of thatched roofs and hard-packed earth floors, food was not merely nourishment, but a direct reflection of one's social standing, one's access to farmland, and one's ability to survive the long winters that arrived each year with unrelenting certainty. And as dawn broke across the green fields, peasants began their day not with the indulgent foods of nobility, but with something far more humble, a thick, coarse, dark loaf of bread made from rye or barley, grains which grew reliably in northern Europe even when wheat was either too expensive or too delicate to cultivate in the harsh, back-and-forth climate of the Middle Ages. This bread, often dense and slightly sour, formed the foundation of nearly every meal, and for peasants who spent their days working the fields, tending livestock, mending tools, or paying labor dues to their lord, the bread was a companion so constant that medieval writers occasionally referred to commoners as the bread-eaters. And indeed, this simple loaf was so crucial that if a harvest failed, entire villages faced hunger, unrest, or dependency on grain stores controlled by the local manor. creating a cycle of reliance that defined medieval life at its core. Alongside bread, peasants often consumed pottage, a long-simmered stew that was part vegetable mush, part improvisation, and part survival strategy. For into this bubbling pot went whatever the family could gather from the garden leeks: onions, peas, cabbage, turnips, mixed with herbs like parsley or sorrel, perhaps thickened with oats, and on fortunate occasions enriched by a small scrap of salted meat or a bone for flavor, turning the pot into the medieval equivalent of a slow cooker maintained throughout the day to ensure that even after long hours in the fields, returning family members would find something warm to eat. This pottage varied dramatically depending on region, season, and wealth, yet its presence remained consistent across medieval Europe, forming a culinary backbone that offered both comfort and sustenance. And as peasants stirred this stew, they did so not with idle leisure, but with a deep sense of practicality, for food preservation remained limited and unreliable, meaning families depended intensely on the rhythm of planting and gathering. Spring brought hope with young greens. Summer offered beans and fresh vegetables. Autumn gifted its final bounty of root crops and small orchard fruits. And winter often the hardest test of all forced peasants to rely on pickled foods, dried grains, or whatever had been carefully stored in cool underground pits during the warmer months. Meanwhile, dairy played a modest but important role in the peasant diet, with cows, goats, or sheep producing milk, which was rarely consumed fresh because of spoilage concerns, and instead transformed into butter, buttermilk, or soft cheeses, all of which provided necessary fats for energy in a world where physical labor consumed most of the body's strength. Children and the elderly often drank watered-down milk or whey, while travelers or shepherds carried small wheels of cheese because they kept far longer than bread and offered a portable, nutritious option for survival. And as for meat, contrary to popular imagination, medieval peasants ate it sparingly, usually saving it for feast days, religious celebrations, weddings, or moments when a family animal grew too old to serve its purpose. Hunting rights were strictly controlled by nobility, meaning peasants could not legally hunt deer or boar. And although small animals like rabbits or birds occasionally found their way to the pot, such acts were risky, and punishments for poaching could be severe, leaving most families reliant on small amounts of pork, salted fish, or whatever communal animals the village raised collectively. The fish, particularly herring, eel, and freshwater species, became especially important during the many fasting days imposed by the church. And because preservation was difficult, salting and smoking became essential techniques, with entire medieval towns building their reputations on the trade of fish barrels shipped across Europe. Drinks, too, followed a simple pattern. Water, though abundant, was not always safe, so peasants commonly consumed weak aloe in alcohol brewed in the household, and considered safer than untreated river water, which accompanied both breakfast and the evening meal. And though wine existed, it was largely reserved for nobility, except in wine-producing regions, where lower quality batches sometimes trickled down to commoners. And through these choices, habits, and constraints, the medieval peasant's diet reveals itself not as a romanticized feast, but as a delicate balance between availability and survival. shaped by the soil beneath their feet and the hierarchies above their heads, meaning that to live like a medieval peasant is to accept a world where every mouthful carries the echo of labor, taxation, and seasonal hardship, yet also the steady comfort of traditions passed quietly from one generation to the next, forming a culinary rhythm that rocked medieval society into a state of resigned endurance, a life where food was simple, predictable, and grounding in its monotony, turning the act of eating into a slow, timeless ritual akin to the gentle hum of wind through the fields or the soft crackle of the hearth fire at day's end, a sound that lulled tired peasants into sleep after long days beneath the medieval sun. As the morning light softened through cracks in the timber walls and the pale sun began its slow climb above the horizon, the peasant household awoke to the quiet rhythm of routine. For the medieval kitchen was both the heart and the engine of survival, a space where knowledge, labor, and resourcefulness intersected, and where every object, from the simplest wooden spoon to the iron cauldron hanging above the embers, was part of a carefully honed system of sustenance passed down through generations. And though these kitchens were far removed from the grandeur of noble halls, their simplicity did not diminish their importance, for in these small, smoky rooms, life itself was orchestrated around the preparation, preservation, and consumption of food, and every action, no matter how mundane, carried profound significance. Mothers and grandmothers attended the fire with careful attention, stirring the pottage to prevent sticking or burning, scraping the bottom of the pot to reclaim every grain, and testing the broth with fingers seasoned by years of practice, while fathers tended the storage of grains and vegetables, ensuring sacks of rye, barley, and oats were kept dry and away from vermin, and children learned quietly, through observation and participation, the delicate balance required to feed a household in a world where every morsel was precious. In these kitchens, the tools themselves were essential partners in survival, for wooden ladles, churns, mortars, and pestles, knives, and pestle boards were all crafted for durability. Yet their design reflected centuries of adaptation to the environment and the limitations of available materials, so that a single pot could serve both as a cooking vessel and a container for storing leftovers, and a wooden spoon could measure, stir, and serve with equal utility, demonstrating the ingenuity and practical intelligence embedded in everyday life. Fire, in particular, was the lifeblood of the kitchen, and managing it required careful skill, for a poorly tended fire could ruin food, damage vessels, or even ignite the thatched roof. And peasants learned from early childhood to control its heat by adjusting embers, adding small twigs or straw, and timing the cooking of each item so that grains were softened without turning to mush and vegetables were tender without being scorched, a constant attention that taught patience and precision, and reinforced the understanding that in the medieval world, human life was inseparable from the careful management of resources. Alongside the tools and fire, the ingredients themselves demanded respect and deep knowledge, for peasants could not rely on markets or imports. Everything was produced locally, seasonally, and often at great physical effort, and even the simplest vegetable, bean, or grain represented months of labor, planning, and care, from planting to harvesting, cleaning and storing. and each addition to the daily meal carried layers of meaning, sustenance, and history. Grains like rye, barley, and oats were meticulously cleaned, sometimes crushed or ground with simple stone mills, and incorporated into pottage, bread, or gruel, according to the needs of the household. While vegetables grown in small gardens were rotated carefully, harvested at peak freshness, and preserved with drying, pickling, or salting to extend their use into the lean months, reflecting an intimate understanding of seasonality, climate, and soil conditions. Knowledge that had been honed over centuries through trial, error, and the slow accumulation of experience. Herbs, too, were treasured, not for flavor alone, but for medicinal value and as a subtle enhancement to otherwise monotonous meals. For parsley, dill, sorrel, or chives could transform a dull pottage into something slightly more satisfying, and their careful cultivation reflected a dual awareness of health and taste, an acknowledgement that survival required both nourishment and the occasional psychological lift that even a hint of fresh herb could provide, reminding peasants that life, while harsh, could contain small joys hidden within routine. Preservation practices were another cornerstone of the medieval kitchen, for without modern refrigeration or canning, the peasant household relied on techniques designed to extend the usability of limited resources through the harsh seasons. Grains were stored in sacks, suspended from rafters, or kept in cool cellars to avoid dampness and infestation. Vegetables were pickled in brine or buried in sand to maintain firmness over months of scarcity. Dairy was transformed into butter, cheese, or whey, extending its shelf life and providing energy-rich food for hard-working bodies. And meats, when available, were salted, smoked, or otherwise treated to prevent rapid spoilage, with fish often preserved through the same methods, particularly in regions near rivers, lakes, or coasts, ensuring that even fasting days required by the church could be met with sustenance, albeit simple and often monotonous. Every preservation method required careful attention, and mistakes could mean illness, spoilage. So the medieval peasant approached these tasks with both reverence and meticulous care, understanding that the kitchen was not a place of luxury, but the very fulcrum of life itself, where knowledge, skill, and labor converged to ensure the family survived the uncertainties of the year. Rituals of cooking and meal preparation, often overlooked by outsiders, were deeply embedded in daily life and reflected the cultural and social order of the village. The timing of meals, the division of labor within the household, and the careful allocation of ingredients all followed long-established patterns, learned from parents and grandparents, and respected not merely for tradition but for necessity. For breaking the rhythm could compromise the household's ability to feed itself efficiently. Thus, the medieval kitchen was a space of rhythm, predictability, and measured patience, with each movement and gesture carrying meaning, whether it was scraping a pot to reclaim every last particle of barley, checking the fire, turning the bread in the oven, or handing a child a small portion to eat. Lessons repeated day after day, year after year, ensuring that the life of the household remained stable, even when the outside world was unpredictable and harsh, and reinforcing the peasant's enduring relationship with labor, resourcefulness, and the subtle artistry embedded in survival. In essence, The peasant kitchen was both simple and extraordinary, modest in appearance, yet rich with practical knowledge, endurance, and a quiet, unspoken poetry that reflected the life of a community intimately tied to the land, to labor, and to the delicate balance between scarcity and sustenance. A space where survival was learned, practiced, and performed daily, and where every tool, ingredient, and gesture was part of a larger narrative of life in the medieval world, turning cooking from mere necessity into an ongoing act of care, wisdom, and resilience, a rhythm so slow, so methodical, and so comforting that even the smallest tasks carried within them a meditative quality, capable of lulling the mind into a quiet state, making the medieval kitchen not only the center of domestic life, but also a gentle, enduring cradle of human continuity, tradition, and the timeless interplay of hunger, hope, and the sustaining power of food. As the day progressed in the modest village, the medieval kitchen remained the pulsating heart of peasant life, a space where every movement, every sound, and every aroma contributed to the rhythm of survival. For here, the work of sustenance was never paused, and each family member, young and old, participated in a choreography honed through generations, ensuring that even in times of scarcity, the household continued to function with precision and quiet efficiency. And as the first rays of morning sun gave way to the warmer tones of midday, the peasants engaged in the careful orchestration of meals that reflected not only the seasons, but also the limited resources available. Their choices informed by a balance between nourishment, preservation, and economy, for every grain, root, or scrap carried significance far beyond its physical presence. The midday meal, though simple, often represented a culmination of earlier labor, where the pottage simmered slowly over the embers, infused with vegetables from the garden, herbs for flavor, and occasionally a small piece of salted meat. And as each household member dipped bread into the steaming pot, the action became an exercise in mindfulness and gratitude, for they were acutely aware that without careful tending, these resources could not last through the day, the week, or the lean months to come, and that survival itself was dependent upon the precise execution of daily rituals that had been perfected through centuries of trial, error, and observation, teaching the villagers patience, skill, and the quiet resilience necessary to endure hardship without complaint. In these moments, even the act of cutting bread or stirring the pot carried ritualistic significance. For such gestures were more than mechanical. They were affirmations of life, continuity, and the unbroken chain of labor and learning that connected each peasant to generations past and those yet to come. And though the food was humble, often repetitive, and lacking in the flavors celebrated by the wealthy, it nourished body and spirit alike, offering sustenance, stability, and a subtle but profound psychological comfort, a reminder that the household's survival depended not on abundance, and an intimate understanding of the land, tools, and ingredients at hand. The preparation and timing of meals required constant attention, as the pace of labor outside the hut dictated the readiness of food within. And the peasant's day unfolded according to the dual rhythm of work and hunger, interwoven in a pattern so precise that deviation could threaten the household's ability to maintain nourishment, particularly during periods of scarcity or harsh weather. As some members returned from tending distant fields, Others assumed responsibility for replenishing the pottage, baking bread, or tending storage containers of dried legumes and grains, ensuring that each element of the diet was maintained to its fullest potential. And as they worked, children learned through observation and participation, absorbing the techniques, timing, and strategies that would enable them to feed their own families in the future. An education as vital as any formal instruction, for knowledge of sustenance, preservation, and practical cooking was survival itself. And in a world without markets, refrigeration, or modern transportation, the lessons imparted in these kitchens were the difference between life and death, prosperity and famine. Every ingredient told a story, carrying the memory of labor, land, and season. And peasants approached each with reverence and practicality, treating grains as sacred sustenance, vegetables as both medicine and food, herbs as flavor and remedy, and occasional scraps of meat as treasures to be stretched with care. Grains were carefully milled, sometimes using communal mills where a portion was claimed as payment, and then transformed into loaves of rye or barley bread, gruels, or thick pottages, providing sustained energy to bodies engaged in exhausting field labor. Vegetables were rotated, preserved, and combined with grains to create meals that were nutritionally modest but sufficient to maintain strength, while herbs like parsley, sage, and sorrel were incorporated to provide taste, digestive benefit, and subtle seasonal variation. And even small amounts of fat or oil, when available, were treated with reverence, for they added both calories and pleasure to otherwise monotonous meals. Preservation was as much an art as it was a science, requiring knowledge of drying, pickling, smoking, and storing, with mistakes potentially leading to spoiled food, illness, or lost sustenance. And these risks meant that peasants cultivated patience, attention to detail, and respect for the limits imposed by nature, season, and available technology. The act of cooking was imbued with rhythm, ritual, and practicality. From stoking embers to stirring pots, kneading dough, and checking the freshness of stored ingredients, even the simplest daily meal was orchestrated with care to ensure that nothing was wasted, and that each household member received a fair share, a consideration that reinforced both familial bonds and communal understanding of fairness and survival. The fire itself was both a tool and a teacher, offering warmth, light, and the controlled heat necessary for cooking while demanding constant attention to prevent ruin. A reminder that even in the modest kitchen, vigilance was inseparable from sustenance, and that life was sustained not through abundance, but through knowledge, effort, and attentiveness to the smallest details. Mealtimes were punctuated by quiet reflection, modest conversation, and the subtle interplay of sensory experience, as the aroma of simmering pottage, the texture of coarse bread, and the warm glow of the hearth created an environment that nurtured the mind as much as the body. Children learned to anticipate the pace of the household. Elders taught lessons in conservation and culinary technique, and every participant, from youngest to oldest, contributed to the maintenance of sustenance and stability, a collaborative effort that reinforced the social fabric of the village and the intimate connection between human labor and the land that provided its limited bounty. And in these ordinary, repetitive, and methodical actions, there was a profound beauty, a slow, meditative quality that allowed even the weary to find calm. A gentle rhythm capable of lulling minds into rest and offering a sense of continuity in an often predictable world. By the evening, when the sun's rays softened and the shadows of the timber walls lengthened, the medieval kitchen transitioned again, preparing for the final meal of the day, the space resonating with the accumulated smells, sights, and textures of labor, growth, and nourishment. Pots were lifted, bread sliced, pottage ladled, and bowls filled, forming a simple but deeply satisfying ritual of closure, a reaffirmation that the household had survived another day, maintained its sustenance, and upheld the rhythms that had ensured continuity through famine, lean seasons, and the relentless demands of agricultural life. And even as each family member ate in silence, they were participating in an unbroken lineage of knowledge, effort, and adaptation, a testament to the resilience, patience, and ingenuity of medieval peasant life, where every bite was both nourishment and history, every meal both necessity and quiet triumph, and every day a reaffirmation of the delicate balance between survival, community, and the sustaining power of the kitchen itself, a space where ordinary labor transformed into ritual, sustenance became meditation, and the slow rhythm of life found expression in the very act of cooking and eating, tying generations together through time, place, and the enduring human need to nourish both body and soul. As the first pale light of dawn stretched across the village, touching the frost-kissed rooftops and the quiet, uneven streets, the medieval peasant household stirred into motion once more, guided not by alarm clocks or modern schedules, but by an intimate understanding of the rhythms of nature, the demands of labor, and the necessities of sustenance. For the life of a peasant was inseparable from the land and the seasons, and every meal, every chore, and every step carried meaning far beyond immediate survival, becoming part of a broader tapestry of endurance, skill, and quiet resilience that had been woven through generations. In these small, timber-framed homes with thatched roofs, the kitchen was the nucleus of daily life, where the fire smoldered continually, the pottage simmered in earthen or iron pots, and the aroma of baking bread filled the modest rooms, offering both nourishment and psychological comfort to families whose lives were governed by scarcity and seasonal fluctuation. And though the ingredients were humble coarse, rye, or barley flour, simple vegetables like onions, leeks, cabbage, and turnips, and the occasional scrap of salted meat or smoked fish, they were handled with care. For every ounce represented labor, luck, and the patient management of limited resources, and to mishandle them was to court waste, illness, or hunger. Consequences keenly felt in households where no meal could be taken for granted. Children learned early the delicate balance between work and nourishment, observing parents as they milled grain, kneaded dough, tended the fire, stirred pottage, or preserved vegetables and dairy for the lean months, acquiring practical knowledge that would sustain them in adulthood. For in a world without convenience or abundance, skill and experience were as crucial to survival as the food itself, and the very act of cooking became a form of education, a transfer of cultural memory, and a ritual of care that bound families together. While keeping hunger at bay, the rhythms of the day were inseparable from the cycles of labor in the fields. For peasants worked in close alignment with the seasons, planting, tending, and harvesting crops according to the dictates of soil, weather, and the slow passage of time, and each day's meals were determined by what could be gathered, preserved, or stretched from the last harvest, with bread serving as the constant anchor, pottage as the staple, and vegetables, herbs, and occasional proteins providing variation, flavor, and essential nutrients. These meals were not intended for pleasure but for sustenance, and yet the careful preparation, the warmth of the fire, and the communal act of sharing imbued them with subtle joy, comfort, and a sense of continuity. For eating together reinforced social bonds, nurtured children, and affirmed the household's ability to persist in a challenging world. And even in times of scarcity, there was a quiet dignity in this practice, a recognition that survival depended on ingenuity, patience, and careful management, and that each modest portion was a testament to the labor, skill, and endurance of those who had come before. Preservation techniques played a central role in medieval dietary life, for without modern refrigeration, peasants relied on drying, salting, smoking, and pickling to extend the lifespan of grains, vegetables, dairy, and occasional meats. And these methods demanded both knowledge and attentiveness. Grains were stored in sacks, in cool cellars, or suspended from rafters to prevent spoilage. Vegetables were buried in sand, pickled, or left to dry. Dairy transformed into cheese or butter, and any available meat or fish was carefully salted or smoked to avoid rapid decomposition, a practice that required careful monitoring, patience, and adaptation, and mistakes could lead to waste, illness, or hunger, consequences that reinforced the household's dependence on skill, diligence, and respect for the natural limitations of their environment. These routines also shaped the peasants' understanding of time and seasons, for they had to anticipate the months ahead, predict storage conditions, and manage supplies with foresight, turning the act of preparing food into an exercise in both practicality and long-term planning, a constant dialogue between immediate needs and future security. The physical act of cooking was itself a slow, deliberate process imbued with rhythm, skill, and a quiet attentiveness. For a poorly managed fire could ruin food, damage vessels, or even cause catastrophe if the thatch ignited. And the medieval peasant learned from childhood to control embers, measure heat, and orchestrate the preparation of each meal with precision. Stirring pottage, kneading bread, and checking stored foods became more than work. They were meditative acts that reinforced patience, attentiveness, and an appreciation for the subtle interplay between labor and sustenance, teaching lessons in endurance, observation, and adaptation that extended beyond the kitchen into every aspect of peasant life, from fieldwork to tending livestock, from maintaining tools to negotiating obligations with the local lord. For in a world without abundance, every action carried weight, and the consequences of negligence could be severe. Mealtimes themselves were subtle rituals, characterized by quiet reflection, shared responsibility, and an implicit understanding of hierarchy and fairness within the household. For parents ensured children ate first if they required nourishment for work, elders received respect and care, and portions were divided carefully to sustain all members as best as possible. Even the simplest meals, bread dipped in pottage, a few cooked vegetables, a small portion of cheese or butter, were imbued with significance, carrying both sustenance and social meaning, reinforcing familial bonds and the shared labor that enabled survival, and teaching children from a young age that patience, cooperation, and careful management were essential skills, as vital as any lesson in the field or the forest. Herbs and wild plants, though often overlooked in modern imagination, played an essential role in medieval peasant diets, providing both flavor and medicinal benefit, and were cultivated in small gardens or foraged from surrounding fields. Parsley, sorrel, sage, and dill enhanced otherwise monotonous pottages, while nettles, dandelion greens, and wild garlic supplied vitamins and minerals, allowing the family to maintain health despite limited variety. And the knowledge of how and when to gather these plants represented an invaluable form of practical intelligence, passed quietly from parent to child and forming an unbroken chain of cultural and nutritional continuity. A body of knowledge as critical as the careful management of grains, vegetables, dairy, and occasional meat that formed the backbone of survival. Evening brought a slower rhythm. As work in the fields concluded, livestock were tended, and the household returned to the kitchen, where the final meal of the day was prepared and shared. Firelight flickered across worn wooden walls, casting shadows that danced gently over tables laden with humble bowls of pottage, slices of coarse bread, and small portions of preserved vegetables or cheese, while children watched, learned, and ate, absorbing the sights, smells, and sounds of the kitchen as an integral part of their education and growth. The act of eating became a shared ritual, a moment of reassurance, and a reaffirmation that despite the hardships of the day, the family had survived, preserved resources, and maintained both physical and social stability, reinforcing the subtle but profound relationship between sustenance, labor, and continuity that defined medieval peasant life, and allowing even the smallest gestures, stirring a pot, cutting bread, sharing a morsel, to carry meaning, memory, and the enduring rhythm of ordinary life, a slow, steady, and meditative cadence that could gently lull the mind toward rest, offering a sense of comfort, continuity, and quiet triumph in a world defined by labor, scarcity, and the ever-present necessity of survival. As the morning unfolded in the medieval village, the peasant household moved with quiet precision, each member performing tasks learned over a lifetime and passed down through generations. For in a world governed by the cycles of nature, labor, and scarcity, survival depended on attentiveness, skill, and the disciplined orchestration of daily life. And nowhere was this more evident than in the preparation and consumption of food, which not only sustained the body but also shaped rhythm, habit, and social order. The hearth, perpetually lit with embers banked from the previous night, served as both the center of the home and a silent witness to the continuity of peasant life, its fire providing warmth, light, and the slow heat necessary for the simmering pottage, the baking of coarse rye or barley bread, and the careful preservation of dairy and root vegetables for lean months ahead. And as smoke curled toward the rafters, the household began its measured routines, kneading dough, tending simmering pots, slicing bread with tools honed for durability rather than elegance, and managing ingredients with a careful economy that balanced immediate nourishment with the uncertain demands of the future. For in this environment, each ounce of grain, every vegetable, and even the smallest scrap of meat represented not indulgence but survival. And to waste any portion was to invite hardship in the days ahead. Children learned early to observe and participate in these practices, absorbing lessons in patience, precision, and the delicate balance between effort and sustenance, while elders guided the process with knowledge born of experience, correcting mistakes gently but firmly, ensuring that each action contributed to the household's endurance, and reinforcing the implicit understanding that every meal, every preparation, and every gesture carried significance beyond mere consumption, linking the family to the land, to tradition, and to the quiet resilience required to persist in a life of labor and scarcity within the peasant kitchen. The preparation of pottage exemplified this careful orchestration, for the dish, humble as it was, demanded a precise combination of timing, heat, and ingredients to yield nourishment sufficient to sustain hard-working bodies through the day. Grains were carefully measured and stirred to prevent sticking, vegetables added at intervals to maintain both texture and flavor, herbs incorporated to enhance taste and support digestion, and occasional bits of meat or fat, when available, stretched judiciously to provide energy, all under the watchful eye of the cook, whose knowledge of fire, ingredients, and timing determined the success of the meal. For a poorly managed pot could ruin hours of labor, leaving the family weakened and vulnerable to the hardships that lay beyond the safety of the home. This attention to detail was not merely about survival, but also about cultivating a sense of order and continuity in a world where uncertainty was constant. And as the pottage simmered, the act of tending it became a quiet meditation, a rhythmic engagement that aligned body and mind with the steady, enduring demands of the environment, reinforcing the connection between labor, nourishment, and the slow passage of time. Bread, similarly, was both sustenance and ritual, for the act of baking transformed basic grains into a stable, portable, and nourishing food that could sustain the household across the day and into future meals. Coarse rye or barley flour was mixed with water and sometimes a small portion of leaven, kneaded with care and shaped into dense loaves, which were then baked in communal ovens or hearths maintained by the family. The heat carefully regulated to avoid burning or undercooking, and the finished product became a source of reassurance, its texture and aroma signaling that, despite the limitations imposed by land, labor, and scarcity, the household had achieved a measure of control over its sustenance, a small triumph that reinforced both practical skill and psychological stability, and provided children with an early lesson in the relationship between effort, patience, and reward. The integration of preserved foods into daily meals further emphasized the medieval peasants' reliance on knowledge, foresight, and attention to detail, for without modern preservation techniques, each item required careful handling to prevent spoilage and maximize utility. Vegetables could be pickled in brine, buried in sand, or stored in cool cellars, while dairy was transformed into butter, cheese, or whey, allowing consumption over weeks or months. And meat and fish, when available, was salted or smoked to extend longevity. ensuring that even the most challenging seasons offered the possibility of sustenance. This reliance on preservation demanded constant vigilance, as spoiled food could bring illness or weaken those already exhausted by labor. And thus, the peasant household developed a disciplined routine, with daily inspection of stores, rotation of provisions, and careful allocation to balance immediate needs with future security, reflecting a sophisticated understanding of resource management and the inherent fragility of their subsistence system. Herbs and wild plants augmented both flavor and nutrition, offering a subtle but essential component of medieval diets, particularly during times when stored grains and vegetables dominated every meal. Parsley, sorrel, dill, and chives, whether grown in small gardens or foraged from nearby hedgerows and meadows, provided not only taste but vitamins and medicinal properties, enhancing digestion, preventing minor illnesses, and contributing to the overall well-being of the household. And the careful cultivation, selection, and timing of these herbs reflected an intimate knowledge of the environment, a deep awareness of seasonal cycles, and a commitment to sustaining life under the strict limitations imposed by nature and society. Children observed and learned, internalizing this knowledge, understanding the subtle cues of plants, the value of timing, and the critical importance of using resources wisely, ensuring that the chain of practical wisdom extended seamlessly from one generation to the next. Evenings, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the village softened into muted shadows, brought the final rhythm of the day, with the hearth at the center of domestic activity and the preparation of the evening meal signaling both closure and reassurance. Firelight flickered across rough wooden surfaces, casting warm, shifting patterns over the kitchen's tools, ingredients, and family members, while pottage simmered, bread was sliced, and bowls were filled for each member. A ritualized act that confirmed survival, reaffirmed familial cohesion, and reinforced the lessons of diligence, attention, and resourcefulness that permeated every aspect of life. Meals were consumed in quiet conversation, reflection, or even silent mindfulness, as each person considered the day's labor, the fruits of their toil, and the continuity of life that persisted despite challenges, establishing a meditative cadence capable of calming the mind, instilling gratitude, and gently preparing both body and spirit for rest, ensuring that the household maintained both physical sustenance and emotional stability in a world defined by effort, scarcity, and the slow but steady rhythm of agricultural life. Through these daily patterns, the medieval peasant's life became an intricate blend of labor, observation, and subtle ritual, where every task, from tending the fire to slicing bread, carried meaning, maintained survival, and reinforced the communal and familial bonds essential to enduring hardship. Each day was an interplay of necessity, skill, and patient attention, a slow, almost hypnotic cadence that bound individuals to their environment, to their neighbors, and to the generations who had preceded them, embedding lessons of endurance, foresight, and quiet triumph in the very act of sustaining life. And even in its apparent simplicity, the life of the medieval peasant, structured around food, labor, and seasonal awareness, revealed a profound sophistication, a mindfulness, and a continuity that modern observers can scarcely imagine. A life in which every bite, every gesture, and every hour was part of a rhythm that connected past, present, and future in the ongoing act of human survival. As the afternoon sun drifted slowly toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the modest village, the medieval peasant household continued its measured rhythm, the tasks of labor, sustenance, and preparation intertwining seamlessly in a cycle that had endured for generations. For in this world, survival depended as much on knowledge, skill, and patience as on the crops and livestock that sustained life. And every member of the family, from the youngest child to the eldest adult, contributed to the careful orchestration of domestic activity, ensuring that the household remained functional, nourished, and prepared for the uncertainties of the coming days. The hearth, ever the center of the home, glowed warmly, its embers tended with careful attention to provide consistent heat for cooking pottage, baking coarse rye or barley bread, and maintaining preserved foods. And even as the children observed and learned, the adults moved with practiced precision, stirring, kneading, chopping, and checking the storage of grains, vegetables, dairy, and occasional meats, aware that the slightest lapse could result in waste, spoilage, or diminished sustenance, for every resource was precious, and every meal, no matter how humble, represented both nourishment and the culmination of labor, skill, and foresight, a tangible manifestation of survival itself. The pottage, the centerpiece of daily meals, simmered gently, its ingredients chosen with care and experience. From vegetables grown in the garden to herbs for flavor and health, to small scraps of salted meat or bones that lent richness, each component carefully timed and managed to extract maximum sustenance, while bread, dense and coarse, provided a reliable anchor for the day's nourishment, sustaining both body and energy for the ongoing demands of fieldwork, tending livestock, and household maintenance. And in these acts, the rhythm of the day became both practical and meditative, reinforcing the slow, enduring cadence of medieval life, where work and nourishment were inseparable, and every action carried consequences that extended beyond the immediate moment into future survival, preservation. A cornerstone of medieval dietary strategy remained central to this daily rhythm, for without the benefit of refrigeration, the household depended on techniques refined over generations, including salting, smoking, drying, and pickling, all aimed at extending the usability of grains, vegetables, dairy, and meat. Grains were stored in carefully maintained sacks in cellars or hung from rafters to avoid dampness and pests. Vegetables were buried in sand or pickled in brine. Dairy transformed into butter, cheese, or whey to prolong shelf life. An occasional meat or fish was salted or smoked, providing critical sources of protein during periods when fresh food was unavailable, particularly in winter or during lean months. The care and attention required for these tasks instilled discipline, patience, and foresight, teaching children that survival depended on the careful balance of consumption, storage, and planning, and that the household's stability rested on the diligent application of knowledge passed down through generations, a continuity of wisdom that ensured life could persist in a world defined by scarcity and uncertainty. Herbs and foraged plants complemented these efforts, providing both flavor and essential nutrients that enriched otherwise monotonous diets. offering not only taste but vitamins, minerals, and medicinal qualities that sustained health and prevented minor illnesses. Parsley, sorrel, dill, chives, and sage were cultivated in small garden plots or gathered from hedgerows and meadows, while wild greens such as nettles, dandelion leaves, and wild garlic supplemented the household's stores, reinforcing the deep connection between peasant life and the natural world, and ensuring that knowledge of plant cycles, seasonal availability, and preparation methods was passed quietly from parent to child, embedding practical wisdom into the rhythms of everyday activity, and creating a continuous chain of survival intelligence that extended beyond a single generation. As evening approached, the household's activity shifted subtly, the pace slowing yet remaining purposeful, for the final meal of the day required preparation, allocation, and ritual that affirmed survival, reinforced family cohesion, and reinforced the subtle social hierarchy and patterns of care within the home. Firelight danced across walls, illuminating rough-hewn furniture, clay pots, and hanging herbs. While the pottage simmered, bread was sliced, and bowls filled with careful consideration to ensure that each member received adequate nourishment. And in these quiet moments, the family absorbed the accumulated lessons of the day, the value of resource management, the importance of patience, the significance of labor, and the enduring connection between effort and sustenance, all of which contributed to the household's continuity, resilience, and sense of security, allowing them to rest with the assurance that, despite the hardships and uncertainties of the broader world, they had maintained the delicate balance necessary for survival. The meditative quality of these domestic routines, often invisible to outside observers, was central to the life of the medieval peasant, transforming ordinary labor into a slow, deliberate rhythm that nurtured both body and mind. Stirring pottage, kneading bread, tending embers, and checking stores became exercises in patience, observation, and mindfulness, embedding a subtle sense of order and stability into a life defined by scarcity and unpredictability, and allowing family members to internalize the skills, knowledge, and values necessary for their long-term survival, ensuring that every meal, every gesture, and every small act of care carried both practical and symbolic significance, linking present actions to the continuity of the household, the community, and the generations that had come before, and shaping the very consciousness of those who participated in these routines, teaching endurance, foresight, and the capacity for quiet contentment within the constraints of peasant life. Even the simplest interactions, children assisting in chopping vegetables, adults stirring the pot, elders inspecting stores, or family members dividing portions fairly, were part of a complex social and practical network of survival that ensured the household functioned efficiently, learned from experience, and passed knowledge forward. These rituals reinforced bonds, cultivated respect, and transmitted essential information about the natural world, the timing of seasons, and the management of scarce resources, embedding survival skills into everyday life in a manner so natural that the household members often were unaware of the deliberate wisdom in their routines. Yet it shaped the entirety of their existence, teaching them to anticipate, adapt, and thrive within the modest parameters of medieval peasant life. By the time darkness settled over the village, and the stars emerged in the cold night sky. The household had completed its final rituals. The hearth smoldered with carefully banked embers, and the day's meals, though simple and repetitive, had fulfilled their purpose of sustaining life, imparting discipline, and reinforcing the bonds of family and community. In this quiet closure, there was a profound continuity, a reassurance that through careful labor, observation, and mindfulness, the household had maintained its resources, nurtured its members, and preserved the rhythm of life, embedding in every movement, gesture, and meal the enduring patterns that allowed human life to persist across generations, connecting each individual to the land, to the seasons, and to the collective knowledge that defined the medieval peasant's experience, and demonstrating that even the most ordinary aspects of daily survival were infused with skill, intelligence, and a subtle poetry born from necessity, continuity, and the slow, meditative cadence of labor, nourishment, and family life. As the first light of dawn stretched over the quiet medieval village, illuminating the thatched roofs, frost-laden fields, and narrow dirt paths, the peasant household awakened to the gentle rhythm of survival, a rhythm dictated not by clocks but by the cycles of the sun, the seasons, and the demands of labor. And in this world, food was not merely nourishment, but the fulcrum around which all life revolved, shaping the day, guiding effort, and teaching lessons in patience, foresight, and endurance. Within the timber-framed cottages, the kitchen remained the center of domestic activity, its hearth glowing softly with embers banked from the previous night, while pots of pottage simmered slowly, releasing a warm aroma that filled the modest interior and signaled the start of the day, and bread, prepared in coarse loaves of rye or barley, rested nearby, its dense texture and hearty flavor providing sustenance for long hours in the fields or tending livestock. For every aspect of the peasant diet reflected a delicate balance between necessity and resourcefulness, between what was available from the harvest and what could be stored, preserved, or foraged to survive until the next season. And children, observing and participating in these routines, absorbed knowledge that would allow them to feed future generations, understanding through action the subtle interplay of labor, timing, and the careful management of scarce resources, learning that even the simplest tasks, stirring a pot, kneading dough, checking the fire, were imbued with significance, sustaining not only bodies, but the social and cultural continuity of the household. Throughout the day, the peasant's life remained intertwined with the land, its seasonal shifts, and the practical demands of sustaining a household. For survival required constant attention to planting, tending, and harvesting crops, caring for livestock, and managing food stores. And every meal was a reflection of this careful orchestration, a culmination of preparation, preservation, and labor, expressed through the humble yet vital staples of rye or barley bread, pottage simmered with vegetables and occasional scraps of meat, dairy transformed into butter, cheese, or whey, and herbs gathered or cultivated to enhance flavor and maintain health. Each component of the diet was a product of patient observation, accumulated knowledge, and thoughtful labor, revealing a profound awareness of the environment, the seasons, and the limits imposed by scarcity. And even minor mistakes could ripple through the household, weakening bodies, diminishing energy for work, or threatening survival during lean months, a reality that instilled both humility and reverence for the resources at hand, teaching every member of the household that life depended on care, attention, and the subtle wisdom embedded in daily routines. The preparation and preservation of food required specialized knowledge, a skill set honed over generations and critical to the household's endurance. For without refrigeration or modern storage, peasants relied on techniques that extended the usability of grains, vegetables, dairy, and meat, balancing immediate consumption with future security. Grains were meticulously cleaned, milled, and stored in sacks in cool cellars or suspended from rafters to prevent dampness and infestation, while vegetables were pickled, dried, or buried in sand to maintain freshness over months. Dairy transformed into butter, cheese, or whey, and meats or fish, when available, salted or smoked for longevity, providing sustenance in the most challenging seasons, particularly winter or periods of scarcity. And the meticulous attention given to these practices cultivated discipline, foresight, and an intimate knowledge of seasonal cycles and preservation methods, reinforcing the understanding that survival was not guaranteed but achieved through patience, skill, and careful planning, and that each action taken in the kitchen had consequences that rippled through the household and across the months to come. Herbs and foraged plants supplemented these meals, providing both flavor and medicinal benefits, a subtle yet vital component of peasant life. For parsley, sorrel, dill, chives, sage, nettles, dandelion greens, and wild garlic enhanced pottage bread and broths, while contributing essential nutrients that supported health and stamina. And their cultivation or gathering required both knowledge and attentiveness, teaching children to observe the environment, understand the seasons, and anticipate availability, embedding in them a deep connection to the land and the rhythms of survival, and ensuring that practical wisdom passed seamlessly from one generation to the next, forming an unbroken chain of expertise in nutrition, preservation, and domestic management, knowledge that was as critical to endurance as labor in the fields or tending livestock throughout the day. The household operated with quiet efficiency, each member performing their tasks with awareness of both immediate and long-term needs. For survival required coordination, foresight, and patience, and the kitchen, with its fire, pots, loaves, and preserved foods, was the fulcrum of activity, ensuring that the family maintained energy, sustained health, and preserved the integrity of resources for the coming weeks and months. And even as work in the fields, tending livestock, or repairing tools demanded attention, the rhythm of meals, preparation, and preservation provided structure, stability, and reassurance, reinforcing both practical skill and the social cohesion of the household, and embedding within daily routines a subtle, meditative cadence that nurtured the body, mind, and spirit, allowing the family to endure scarcity with resilience, patience, and quiet dignity. Mealtimes were not merely practical, but ritualistic, reinforcing familial bonds, teaching discipline, and embedding lessons of conservation and foresight. For each bowl of pottage, slice of bread, or portion of preserved food represented a careful balance of consumption and planning, a tangible expression of labor and wisdom, and an opportunity to transmit practical knowledge to younger members, whose participation in serving, stirring, and observing ensured continuity of expertise, awareness of seasonal cycles, and comprehension of the interplay between nourishment, work, and survival. Through these repeated actions, children internalized the subtle logic of domestic management, learned patience, attention, and resourcefulness, and came to understand that the survival of the household was inseparable from skillful engagement with the kitchen, the storage of food, and the careful orchestration of daily tasks, and that even seemingly minor gestures, stirring a pot at the right moment, kneading dough to the correct consistency, checking preserved vegetables, could carry consequences far beyond the immediate task, influencing the health, energy, and endurance of the family over weeks and months. As the sun lowered toward the horizon and evening approached, the household's pace softened but remained purposeful, preparing for the final meal and the transition to rest, a period marked by quiet reflection, shared labor, and the reaffirmation of continuity. For the fire's glow, the aroma of simmering pottage, the texture of coarse bread, and the presence of family members offered reassurance and stability, embedding within the household a sense of order, discipline, and connection, and allowing even the youngest children to absorb the rhythm of survival, the subtle lessons of care, patience, and foresight, and the deep, unspoken knowledge that life was sustained not through abundance, but through careful management, observation, and the deliberate cultivation of skills honed over generations. Skills that enabled endurance in a world defined by scarcity, labor, and the ever-present demands of both land and household. In these closing hours of the day, the medieval kitchen became a space of reflection, continuity, and quiet triumph, a locus where labor, nourishment, and domestic wisdom converged, embedding in every action, gesture, and meal the values, skills, and knowledge that defined peasant life, and transforming ordinary tasks into acts of endurance, intelligence, and meditative rhythm, ensuring that the household maintained its cohesion, sustained its members, and preserved both life and legacy across the relentless cycle of seasons, scarcity, and survival, teaching all who participated the profound significance of careful labor, attentiveness to detail, and the slow, steady cadence of daily life, a cadence that could lull mind and body alike into calm, sustaining both spirit and flesh, and demonstrating that even in the most modest household, the act of managing food, preserving resources, and tending daily life was imbued with wisdom, continuity, and quiet dignity, a testament to human resilience, ingenuity, and the enduring relationship between people, the land, and the rhythm of survival. As the sun climbed higher into the crisp morning sky, casting soft light upon the timber-framed cottages and frost-laden fields of the medieval village, the peasant household moved with quiet precision, each member performing tasks that were both labor and lesson. For in this world of scarcity and seasonal uncertainty, survival depended on the delicate orchestration of domestic routines, observation of nature, and careful management of food and resources. And the kitchen, ever the heart of the home, was the stage upon which these lessons were enacted daily, its embers glowing steadily, its clay and iron pots simmering with pottage, and its coarse loaves of rye or barley bread resting nearby, ready to provide sustenance for the family before the day's work in fields, gardens, and pastures demanded their strength. For every ounce of food, every vegetable, herb, or scrap of salted meat represented not indulgence but survival, the culmination of labor, patience, and accumulated knowledge. And children, observing their parents and elders, absorbed these lessons through participation, understanding the intricate relationship between preparation, timing, and conservation, and learning that each task, from stirring the pot to kneading dough, checking storage, or tending embers, carried significance that extended far beyond the immediate moment, linking present action to survival, continuity, and familial legacy. Within this rhythm, the household maintained a balance between immediate nourishment and preservation, a balance dictated by the seasons, the yield of the fields, and the careful planning required to ensure that stores of grains, vegetables, and dairy would endure through lean months, teaching discipline, foresight, and patience, and embedding in every household member a profound respect for the limits imposed by both nature and circumstance, as well as the ingenuity required to navigate them. The process of preparing the midday meal exemplified this intricate balance. For pottage, the central dish of the peasant diet, required careful attention to both ingredients and timing, with grains added first to soften and thicken the mixture, followed by root vegetables, onions, and cabbages, and herbs like parsley, dill, or chives, introduced near the end to enhance flavor and support digestion, while occasional small scraps of salted meat or bones lent richness. Each addition carefully considered to maximize sustenance and avoid waste. The slow simmer over steady embers allowed flavors to meld, texture to develop, and nutrients to be preserved, teaching both patience and precision, and providing a tangible demonstration of the interdependence between labor, food, and survival. A lesson absorbed by observing children and repeated by adults who understood that mastery of these routines was essential to the continuity of household life. For a poorly managed pot could mean hunger, weakened bodies, or illness, while careful attention ensured nourishment, energy, and stability through the challenges of the day and the months to come. Bread preparation was equally vital, a cornerstone of peasant sustenance, for dense loaves of rye or barley flour provided portable, filling nutrition capable of sustaining laborers through long hours in the fields or tending livestock. The process of mixing, kneading, shaping, and baking required precise timing, temperature management, and an understanding of leaven, fermentation, and the tactile qualities of the dough, skills passed down through generations and observed carefully by children, whose participation in kneading, shaping, and checking the bread embedded knowledge critical for their future survival. The resulting loaves, coarse and hearty, were both nourishment and reassurance, a symbol of continuity, resourcefulness, and the household's ability to transform humble ingredients into sustenance capable of carrying the family through work, weather, and scarcity. And their preparation reflected not only practical skill, but also the cultural and social rhythm that defined medieval peasant life, in which the care of food mirrored the care of the household itself. Preservation practices formed another essential layer of peasant expertise. For without modern refrigeration or storage, extending the usability of grains, vegetables, dairy, and occasional meats required both knowledge and vigilance. Grains were cleaned, milled, and stored in cool cellars or suspended from rafters to avoid dampness and pests. Vegetables buried in sand, pickled, or dried. Dairy transformed into cheese, butter, or whey. And meat or fish salted or smoked to endure the lean months, ensuring that even periods of scarcity or harsh weather could be met with sufficient nourishment, and that the household could navigate the precarious balance between consumption and long-term survival. A balance that demanded attentiveness, patience, and foresight, teaching children the subtle but vital lessons of preparation, conservation, and anticipation that were as critical to endurance as labor in the fields, tending livestock, or repairing tools. Herbs and foraged plants were a critical supplement, providing both flavor and essential nutrition, a subtle but necessary component of the medieval diet. Parsley, sage, dill, chives, sorrel, nettles, dandelion greens, and wild garlic enhanced otherwise monotonous meals, while also contributing vitamins, minerals, and medicinal benefits. And their cultivation, gathering, and preparation required deep knowledge of the seasons, soil, and environment, a knowledge observed by children and quietly passed down through generations, embedding practical wisdom in the daily routines of the household, reinforcing an intimate connection to the land, the seasons, and the cyclical demands of survival, and ensuring that both nourishment and continuity were maintained through the careful use of available resources. As the day progressed, the household's rhythm was punctuated by labor outside the home, tending fields, gardens, livestock, and repairs. But the kitchen remained the anchor, the place to which all returned for nourishment, continuity, and instruction. Each family member understood that the energy provided by meals, the lessons absorbed through participation in preparation, and the discipline cultivated in the act of tending food and stores were inseparable from survival. For without careful management of the hearth, ingredients, and preservation, the work of the day could falter, the household weakened, and the continuity of life disrupted. And so every stir of a pot, every loaf of bread shaped, and every jar of pickled vegetables prepared became both practical labor and a lesson in foresight, patience, and resilience, embedding survival strategies into daily routine, habit, and consciousness, ensuring that the household could endure the cycles of abundance and scarcity that defined peasant life. Evening descended with the soft hues of twilight, casting shadows across the timber walls and the modest furnishings of the household. As the final meal of the day was prepared and shared, the hearth's glow reflected on clay pots, wooden utensils, and hanging herbs, while the pottage simmered gently and bread was sliced into portions calculated to sustain the family. And in this quiet ritual, the household reaffirmed not only physical survival, but the social and cultural bonds that connected each member to one another, to the land, and to generations past, teaching children the rhythm of care, observation, and responsibility, and reinforcing in adults the enduring importance of skill, patience, and attentiveness, and the subtle wisdom embedded in routine, repetition, and thoughtful labor, as every gesture, every meal, and every shared moment contributed to the household's continuity, stability, and quiet triumph over the hardships and scarcity of peasant life. Through these daily practices, the medieval peasant household embodied an intricate, unspoken understanding of the world. A combination of labor, observation, preservation, and social cohesion that ensured survival, transmitted knowledge, and cultivated resilience. And even the simplest meals, tasks, and gestures carried significance far beyond their immediate purpose, linking body, mind, and spirit to the slow, meditative cadence of survival, while embedding lessons in endurance, foresight, and resourcefulness that would sustain future generations, and creating a rhythm in which work, nourishment, and reflection converged, transforming the ordinary into an enduring testament to human ingenuity, adaptability, and quiet dignity. As the sun dipped toward the western horizon, bathing the medieval village in warm, golden light, the peasant household shifted into the final rhythm of the day, a rhythm defined by preparation, reflection, and careful attention to both sustenance and survival. For in this world of scarcity and hard labor, every action, every meal, and every gesture carried significance beyond the immediate moment, linking the family to generations past, the land they tilled, and the ongoing cycles of seasons, and the hearth, perpetually glowing with embers banked from earlier hours, remained the center of domestic life, its fire providing warmth, light, and the controlled heat necessary for the simmering pottage, baking of coarse rye or barley bread, and the careful maintenance of preserved vegetables, dairy, and occasional meats, which would sustain the household through the coming nights and lean months, teaching both practical skill and patience in a world where mistakes could have immediate consequences. Throughout the day, children had observed and participated, learning the subtle rhythms of kneading, stirring, chopping, checking, storage, and tending fire, internalizing lessons in foresight, resource management, and attention to detail, and understanding that survival depended not on abundance, but on careful orchestration, knowledge, and the cumulative wisdom passed down through generations, while adults, moving with practiced precision, reinforced these lessons by modeling discipline, care, and patience, ensuring that every task contributed to both immediate nourishment and long-term stability, and that each act of preparation or preservation became a quiet exercise in mindfulness, continuity, and resilience. The evening meal, modest yet vital, required careful attention to timing, proportion, and the optimal use of available ingredients for the pottage, a thick, hearty mixture of grains, root vegetables, onions, and occasionally small scraps of salted meat or bones had to simmer slowly to extract maximum nourishment, while herbs such as parsley, dill, sage, and chives were added near the end to enhance flavor, support digestion, and contribute essential nutrients. And bread, dense and coarse, had been baked to provide sustenance throughout the night and following day, reinforcing the household's rhythm and ensuring that energy was available for the labor and chores to come. These meals, while simple and repetitive, were infused with significance, a combination of survival, instruction, and quiet ritual, teaching children the interconnectedness of labor, preservation, and nourishment, while embedding practical knowledge that would carry them into adulthood, and reminding all household members that every action, however small, contributed to the enduring stability and continuity of their lives. Preservation techniques remained central to these routines, for without modern refrigeration or storage, the household relied on careful planning, attention, and experience to extend the usability of grains, vegetables, dairy, and meat, ensuring sustenance across seasons and unpredictable weather. Grains were cleaned, milled, and stored in cool cellars or suspended from rafters to avoid dampness and pests. Vegetables buried in sand, dried, or pickled. Dairy transformed into cheese, butter, or whey. And meats or fish salted or smoked, all demanding vigilance and careful allocation, as errors could result in illness, hunger, or loss of valuable calories. And the meticulous attention to detail required in these tasks instilled discipline, patience, and foresight, teaching children that survival was achieved not through abundance, but through careful observation, labor, and the preservation of resources. While adults reinforced these lessons through example, guidance, and participation in the household's daily rhythm. Herbs and foraged plants contributed subtle yet essential nutrition, providing vitamins, minerals, and medicinal properties that enhanced the otherwise limited peasant diet. Parsley, sorrel, dill, chives, sage, nettles, dandelion greens, and wild garlic were either cultivated in small garden plots or gathered from surrounding meadows, their careful preparation reflecting a deep understanding of seasonal cycles, soil conditions, and environmental cues, and embedding in the household an intimate connection to the land, an awareness of natural resources, and the knowledge of how to extend both flavor and sustenance, a knowledge absorbed by children and quietly passed down from generation to generation, ensuring continuity, resilience, and the subtle embedding of survival strategies within the routine of daily life. The evening, while quieter than the busy hours of the morning and midday, was no less significant, for it was a time of reflection, instruction, and reinforcement of household cohesion, where the family gathered around the hearth, partaking in the meal that represented the day's labor, care, and skill, sharing not only sustenance but subtle lessons in observation, planning, and patience, while the warm glow of firelight illuminated simple furnishings, clay pots, wooden utensils, and hanging herbs, and lent a meditative calm to the household, allowing adults and children alike to internalize the rhythm of survival, the subtle interplay between labor and nourishment, and the enduring significance of each task, gesture, and portion allocated with care, creating an environment where learning, reflection, and continuity were as integral to life as the food itself. In these final hours of the day, the practical and symbolic functions of the kitchen converged, transforming ordinary domestic labor into a structured, meditative cadence that nurtured both body and mind, instilling in children lessons of resourcefulness, attentiveness, and patience, while reinforcing in adults the importance of skill, foresight, and careful management, and embedding in the household a profound sense of continuity, linking present actions to the survival of future generations and the wisdom accumulated over centuries. Every pot stirred, every loaf baked, every preserved vegetable tended, and every herb added represented not merely nourishment, but the deliberate cultivation of knowledge, resilience, and an enduring connection to the rhythms of nature and the cycles of human labor, teaching that survival in a medieval peasant household was achieved not through abundance, luxury, or convenience, but through disciplined attention, careful planning, and the mindful integration of work, observation, and domestic wisdom, a lesson that permeated every movement, every meal, and every interaction within the home, and which allowed life to continue generation after generation, in continuity and quiet dignity by nightfall. As darkness cloaked the village and stars appeared in the cold sky above, the household prepared for rest, the embers carefully banked to last through the night, bread stored, pottage cooled for the next day, and preserved foods checked for quality and security. Each action reinforcing the household's continuity, endurance, and ability to meet the challenges of scarcity, weather, and labor. In these quiet preparations, the rhythm of peasant life labor, nourishment, preservation, and reflection was reinforced, embedding survival strategies, skill, and patience into the household's daily experience, and offering both psychological comfort and practical security. A reminder that even in a life defined by limitation, endurance, and labor, there was dignity, continuity, and a profound wisdom in the careful management of resources, the attentive practice of domestic routines, and the meditative cadence of daily survival. Through these repeated patterns, the medieval peasant household exemplified an intricate, subtle mastery of life, integrating labor, observation, preservation, and social cohesion, embedding lessons of foresight, patience, and skill into daily practice, and demonstrating that even the simplest tasks, stirring, chopping, tending fire, distributing portions, or gathering herbs, were imbued with significance that extended far beyond the immediate moment, connecting each household member to the cycles of nature, to generations past and future, and to the enduring human capacity to endure, adapt, and maintain both life and knowledge in a world defined by scarcity, labor, and the slow, meditative rhythm of survival. As the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, illuminating the frost-laden fields and timber-framed cottages of the medieval village, the peasant household awoke to the gentle cadence of survival, a rhythm dictated by the cycles of the sun, the seasons, and the unceasing demands of labor. And in this world, food was not merely nourishment, but the central axis around which daily life revolved, shaping work, teaching lessons, and reinforcing bonds across generations. Within the modest cottages, the hearth glowed with embers banked from the previous night, the simmering pottage releasing its aroma, while dense loaves of rye or barley rested nearby, prepared with care to sustain bodies through long hours in the fields or tending livestock. For every meal was a product of patient labor, careful planning, and accumulated knowledge, and every ingredient, root, vegetables, grains, herbs, or small scraps of salted meat, presented survival, effort, and the careful management of scarce resources, a lesson absorbed by children who watched, stirred, kneaded, chopped, and observed with rapt attention, internalizing the rhythm of domestic life, the interdependence of labor and nourishment, and the delicate balance between immediate consumption and long-term preservation, while adults moved with practiced precision, reinforcing discipline, foresight, and attentiveness, ensuring that each action contributed not only to the sustenance of the household, but also to the transmission of knowledge, skill, and continuity, linking present effort to both survival and the legacy of those who had come before, and embedding a slow, meditative cadence into the daily rhythm that nurtured body, mind and spirit alike. The midday meal, central to the household's rhythm, required careful attention for the staple of the peasant diet, demanded precise timing, layering of ingredients, and attention to simmering to extract maximum nourishment, while bread, dense and coarse, provided sustenance and energy for work to come. Grains were added early, followed by root vegetables, onions, cabbage, and occasional scraps of salted meat, all stirred and monitored carefully, while herbs such as parsley, dill, chives, and sage were introduced at the final stage to enhance both flavor and nutritional value, teaching children through participation that patience, observation, and skill were essential to transforming humble ingredients into life-sustaining meals, and that every action, from stirring to kneading, carried consequences beyond the immediate moment, influencing health, energy, and endurance across the day and the coming weeks, embedding in each household member an intuitive understanding of resource management, labor, and the interdependence of all tasks required for survival. Bread, baked in dense loaves of rye or barley, was both sustenance and symbol of household resilience, for its preparation required tactile skill, precise timing, and careful attention, texture, and heat, all of which were observed and learned by children who kneaded dough-shaped loaves and watched over the fire, internalizing practical wisdom that would carry them through adulthood, and reinforcing the understanding that survival depended as much on skill and care in the kitchen as on labor in the fields or tending livestock, as every loaf represented the careful transformation of humble ingredients into enduring nourishment capable of sustaining the household through laborious days, scarcity, and the unpredictable cycles of seasons, linking domestic practice to both continuity and resilience. Preservation remained a cornerstone of household management, for without refrigeration, the peasant relied on experience and vigilance to extend the life of grains, vegetables, dairy, and meats, ensuring sustenance during lean months, harsh winters, or periods of scarcity. Grains were stored in sacks in cool cellars or hung from rafters, vegetables buried in sand, dried, or pickled, dairy transformed into butter, cheese, or whey, and meat or fish salted or smoked to endure the seasons, each task requiring careful observation and foresight, instilling in children an understanding of resource management, patience, and the consequences of negligence, while reinforcing in adults the subtle intelligence embedded in these daily routines, and creating a rhythm that balanced immediate consumption with long-term security, teaching that survival depended on planning, attention, and the deliberate practice of domestic skills honed over generations. Herbs and foraged plants augmented the peasant diet, contributing flavor, nutrition, and medicinal properties, while cultivating a deeper connection with the land and seasons. Parsley, dill, sage, chives, nettles, dandelion greens, sorrel, and wild garlic, either grown in small plots or foraged from surrounding fields, were carefully prepared and added to meals, enhancing flavor and providing vitamins, minerals, and healing properties, while teaching children to observe seasonal cycles, understand environmental cues, and respect natural resources, embedding practical knowledge and ecological literacy into daily life, and ensuring continuity of wisdom that extended through generations, reinforcing that survival was not only about labor, but about observation, anticipation, and thoughtful interaction with the natural world. Throughout the day, labor extended beyond the home into the fields, gardens, and pastures. Yet the kitchen remained the heart of household activity, anchoring the family in both sustenance and education, as every meal, every preparation, and every preserved ingredient was tied to the energy, skill, and endurance required for daily work. The household operated as a cohesive unit, with each member aware of the consequences of action or inattention, understanding that survival relied on the integration of observation, labor, nourishment, and preservation, and internalizing the rhythms of work, rest, and domestic management, embedding the logic of survival into the body and mind through repetition, routine, and participation, while fostering cohesion, responsibility, and a deep respect for both resources and family. Evening brought the final rhythm of the day, a time of reflection, care, and ritualized closure as the fire glowed warmly. Pottage simmered, bread was portioned, and preserved foods checked and secured for the night. Each action reinforcing survival, continuity, and household stability, while creating a meditative cadence that nurtured the body and mind alike. The family gathered, sharing sustenance and quiet conversation, transmitting lessons of patience, foresight, and attentiveness to children, reinforcing social bonds and embedding knowledge that linked present actions to the household's resilience and continuity, while also instilling in each member an appreciation of the subtle artistry embedded in everyday survival, a rhythm that transformed ordinary domestic tasks into a structured, reflective, and enduring practice of life itself. Through these daily practices, the medieval peasant household exemplified an intricate mastery of survival, balancing labor, nourishment, preservation, and social cohesion, embedding lessons of foresight, patience, and skill into each task and interaction, demonstrating that even the simplest action-stirring pottage, kneading bread, checking stores, or tending herbs were imbued with significance that extended beyond immediate survival to encompass the continuity of family, knowledge, and tradition, linking every household member to the cycles of nature, the legacy of generations past, and the enduring practice of sustaining life in a world defined by scarcity, labor, and the meditative cadence of daily routine, where skill, attentiveness, and reflection ensured survival, stability, and quiet dignity for the household across seasons, years, and generations. As the morning progressed in the medieval village, the peasant household continued its careful rhythm of labor, observation, and sustenance, a rhythm inseparable from survival. For in a world defined by seasonal cycles, scarcity, and the unceasing demands of work, every task, every gesture, and every meal carried weight far beyond the immediate moment, linking the family to the land, the seasons, and the accumulated wisdom of generations past. Within the timber-framed cottage, the hearth glowed steadily. Embers banked and fire tended to provide warmth, light, and the controlled heat necessary for the simmering of pottage, the baking of dense rye or barley bread, and the careful monitoring of preserved vegetables, dairy, and occasional scraps of meat, which would sustain the household through the day and into lean periods, while children watched, stirred, kneaded, chopped, and observed, internalizing the rhythm of domestic life and the subtle lessons of patience, foresight, and attention to detail that were essential for survival. And adults moved with practiced precision, modeling discipline, resourcefulness, and the careful orchestration of household labor, ensuring that every action, from tending the fire to portioning ingredients, contributed both to immediate nourishment and the long-term stability of the family, embedding in each participant a meditative cadence that nurtured body, mind, and spirit alike. The preparation of the midday meal exemplified this balance, for pottage, the cornerstone of the peasant diet, required meticulous attention to both ingredients and timing, with grains added early to thicken the mixture, root vegetables and onions following to provide bulk and nourishment, occasional scraps of salted meat or bones to enrich the flavor and protein content, and herbs such as parsley, dill, chives, and sage added toward the end to enhance flavor, support digestion, and provide essential nutrients, all stirred with care over a steady flame to avoid burning or overcooking, and taught children through participation the critical link between effort, observation, and sustenance, as every movement, from stirring the pot to adding ingredients at the correct moment, influenced the household's energy, health, and endurance over the coming hours and days, embedding a sense of responsibility, precision, and awareness that would remain with them into adulthood, ensuring that the continuity of skill, knowledge, and survival persisted across generations. Bread preparation was equally central. 4 dense loaves of rye or barley were both sustenance and symbol of household resilience, capable of sustaining laborers in the fields and providing a reliable anchor for the day's nourishment. The process required precise mixing, kneading, shaping, and baking, skills honed over years and transmitted from elders to children who absorbed both tactile knowledge and the rhythm of labor that linked each loaf, patience, and foresight, and reinforced the understanding that careful attention to even the simplest domestic tasks was inseparable from the household's continuity, stability, and ability to endure scarcity, weather, and the cyclical demands of life in the medieval countryside. Preservation of food remained an essential part of daily labor, for without refrigeration or modern storage, extending the life of grains, vegetables, dairy, and meat required vigilance, skill, and knowledge passed through generations. Grains were cleaned and stored in cool cellars or hung from rafters to prevent dampness and infestation. Vegetables buried in sand, dried or pickled, dairy transformed into butter, cheese, or whey, and meats or fish salted or smoked, each step demanding careful observation and foresight, and every misstep potentially resulting in spoilage, weakened bodies, or illness, teaching children the importance of diligence, patience, and resource management, while reinforcing in adults the subtle intelligence embedded in these routines, creating a household rhythm that balanced immediate consumption with long-term sustenance, and embedding practical survival knowledge seamlessly into daily life, so that even ordinary tasks contributed to continuity, resilience, and stability. Herbs and foraged plants played a subtle yet vital role, providing nutrition, flavor, and medicinal properties while deepening the household's connection to the land. Seasons and cycles of survival. Parsley, dill, sage, chives, sorrel, nettles, dandelion greens, and wild garlic, grown in small plots or gathered from meadows and hedgerows, enhanced the flavor of meals, enriched nutrition, and supplied minor remedies for common ailments, while their careful preparation and timing taught children to observe environmental cues, understand seasonal availability, and respect natural resources, embedding practical knowledge, ecological literacy, and subtle wisdom into the daily rhythm of life, and ensuring that the household maintained continuity, resilience, and a deep awareness of the interdependence of labor, food, and survival. As the afternoon unfolded, the household engaged in a seamless integration of work, both inside and outside the home, balancing tending fields, gardens, and livestock with domestic preparation, preservation, and instruction, each activity reinforcing lessons of foresight, attentiveness, and careful management. The kitchen remained the heart of this rhythm, anchoring the household in sustenance, education, and continuity, as every meal, loaf of bread, jar of preserved vegetables, and added herb carried lessons in patience, diligence, and the subtle coordination of labor, linking immediate action to the household's long-term survival, embedding knowledge into both body and mind, and cultivating a sense of responsibility and cohesion that extended beyond the day's work to the broader cycles of life, land, and family. Evening approached, softening the light and inviting quiet reflection. As the final meal of the day was prepared and shared, the hearth glowing warmly, pottage simmering, bread sliced and portioned, and preserved foods checked and secured for the night, each gesture reinforcing survival, continuity, and the subtle meditation of domestic labor, while teaching children through observation and participation the interwoven lessons of resourcefulness, patience, and foresight, and reminding adults of the enduring significance of skill, attentiveness, and careful management. The household, gathered together in the warm glow of firelight, reinforced both nourishment and social cohesion, embedding survival strategies, practical knowledge, and subtle wisdom into each member, linking present actions to the household's continuity, resilience, and ability to meet the challenges of scarcity, labor, and seasonal change, and teaching that even the simplest domestic gestures carried significance, embedding a meditative rhythm of life that nurtured both body and mind while sustaining the household across seasons, years, and generations. Through this daily cycle, the medieval peasant household exemplified the integration of labor, observation, preservation, and social cohesion, embedding lessons of skill, foresight, patience, and endurance into the smallest of tasks. From stirring a pot to kneading bread, checking preserved foods, or tending herbs, ensuring continuity, survival, and the transmission of knowledge, while connecting each member to the land, the seasons, and the rhythm of life itself, demonstrating that survival depended not on abundance or convenience, but on careful attention, deliberate labor, and the meditative cadence of domestic routines, where every gesture, meal, and task contributed to the household's endurance, stability, and quiet dignity, a rhythm that wove together generations past, present, and future into a continuous practice of human resilience, skill, and the enduring art of survival. As the afternoon sun began to wane, casting long golden shadows across the timber-framed cottages and frost-touched fields of the medieval village, the peasant household settled into the final rhythm of the day, a rhythm of care, reflection, and the deliberate orchestration of sustenance, labor, and preservation. For in this world defined by scarcity, seasonal cycles, and unceasing work, every action, meal, and gesture carried significance beyond the immediate moment, linking the family to the land, the accumulated knowledge of generations past, and the continuity of life into the future. Within the modest cottage, the hearth glowed warmly, embers carefully banked and tended to provide light and heat for the simmering pottage, baking of dense rye or barley bread, and monitoring of preserved vegetables, dairy, and occasional meats, which would sustain the household into the evening and through the coming days. And children, observing and participating, absorbed the rhythm of domestic life, learning lessons in patience, attentiveness, foresight, and resourcefulness that were essential for survival, while adults moved with practiced precision, modeling discipline, skill, and careful management, ensuring that every stirring of a pot, kneading of dough, and checking of food stores contributed not only to immediate nourishment, but also to the long-term stability and continuity of the family, embedding a meditative cadence into the daily routine that nurtured body, mind, and spirit alike, and linking labor, observation, and sustenance into a seamless practice of survival. The evening meal, modest yet vital, demanded careful attention to ingredients, timing, and proportion, as the pottage, a thick blend of grains, root vegetables, onions, cabbage, and occasional scraps of salted meat or bones, simmered slowly over a controlled flame, while herbs such as parsley, dill, sage, and chives were added at the final stage to enhance flavor, provide essential nutrients, and support digestion. And bread, dense and coarse, was sliced into portions to sustain energy for the night and the following day. Every action carried instruction, teaching children through participation, observation, and skill were inseparable from survival, and that the care invested in these humble tasks directly influenced the health, energy, and endurance of the household, embedding practical knowledge, discipline, and foresight into the rhythm of daily life, while reinforcing in adults the subtle intelligence and continuity of domestic routines, creating a household culture in which every gesture, from tending the fire to adding herbs at the correct moment, reflected both necessity and quiet artistry, and contributed to the stability, resilience, and cohesion of the family. Bread preparation, equally central, required precise timing, attention to leaven, kneading, shaping, and baking, all practiced and refined over generations, and observed closely by children who participated in the work, absorbing tactile knowledge, patience, and rhythm that would carry them into adulthood. These dense loaves of rye or barley were more than sustenance. They symbolized the household's resilience, skill, and careful management of resources, serving as a reliable source of nutrition and energy that allowed laborers to work in the fields, tend livestock, and maintain the household, linking domestic skill to both survival and continuity, and teaching the value of deliberate attention, perseverance, and foresight in all aspects of peasant life. From food preparation to preservation, work, and care for the household, preservation remained a central concern, for the survival of the household depended on extending the usability of grains, vegetables, dairy, and meat without modern refrigeration. Grains were cleaned, milled, and stored in cool cellars or hung from rafters to avoid dampness and pests. Vegetables buried in sand, dried, or pickled. Dairy transformed into butter, cheese or whey, and meats or fish salted or smoked to last, each step requiring vigilance, patience, and skill, and every misstep carrying consequences for nourishment, energy, and health, teaching children the vital importance of diligence and careful observation, while reinforcing in adults the enduring value of knowledge, skill, and foresight in ensuring continuity, survival, and stability. Embedding these lessons seamlessly into the rhythm of daily life so that even the simplest tasks were rich with significance, and every action contributed to the household's endurance, resilience, and ability to navigate scarcity, labor, and the cycles of nature. Herbs and foraged plants played a critical role, providing flavor, essential nutrition, and minor medicinal support, while deepening the household's connection to the land and seasonal rhythms. Parsley, dill, sage, chives, sorrel, nettles, dandelion greens, and wild garlic, cultivated in small plots or gathered from meadows and hedgerows, were carefully prepared and added to meals, teaching children to observe environmental cues, respect natural resources, and understand seasonal availability, embedding ecological literacy, practical knowledge, and subtle wisdom into the household's daily rhythm, ensuring continuity, resilience, and the transmission of skills that would sustain generations, and reinforcing that survival depended as much on observation and thoughtful interaction with nature as on labor and preservation. As the late afternoon unfolded, the household engaged in coordinated tasks both within and beyond the home, balancing fieldwork, garden tending, livestock, and domestic preparation, every action interwoven with lessons of foresight, attentiveness, and careful planning. The kitchen remained the anchor, the place where labor, nourishment, and education converged as each meal prepared, loaf baked, jar of preserved vegetables checked, and herb added taught children the interdependence of action, observation, and survival, embedding knowledge, skill, and responsibility into daily life, fostering cohesion and awareness, and reinforcing the understanding that continuity, stability, and endurance required deliberate effort, coordination, and thoughtful management of both resources and labor. As dusk settled, softening the light and casting shadows across timber walls, the final meal of the day was prepared and shared, the hearth glowing warmly, pottage simmering, bread portioned, and preserved foods secured for the night. This quiet ritual reinforced survival, continuity, and household cohesion, while teaching children through participation the subtle lessons of patience, resourcefulness, and foresight, and reminding adults of the significance of skill, attentiveness, and careful planning, embedding practical wisdom into each gesture, each meal, and each domestic act, and linking daily routine to the broader continuity of family, survival, and the intergenerational transmission of knowledge, ensuring that the household remained resilient, nourished, and connected to the rhythms of both land and life. Through these repeated daily practices, the medieval peasant household embodied an intricate mastery of labor, observation, preservation, and social cohesion, embedding lessons of skill, foresight, patience, and endurance into even the simplest tasks, from stirring pottage to kneading bread, checking preserved stores, or tending herbs, ensuring the continuity of family, knowledge, and survival. while connecting each household member to the land, the cycles of nature, and the enduring rhythm of life itself, demonstrating that survival depended not on abundance or convenience, but on careful attention, disciplined labor, and the slow, meditative cadence of domestic routine, where every meal, gesture, and task contributed to the household's stability, resilience, and quiet dignity, weaving together generations past, present, and future into a continuous practice of endurance, intelligence, and the art of survival in a world defined by scarcity, labor, and the subtle poetry of everyday life.